Hello NBA fans, and welcome back to the NBA The Week That Was. As you all must know, the season will be resuming today when the Jazz and Pelicans tip things off in Orlando inside the NBA bubble that is known around the world at this point. In this video, I'll be giving my predictions for how the season will play out and who I think will be winning each playoff series, who will be advancing, and who will eventually win the 2019-2020 NBA season. So without further ado, let me introduce my playoff bracket and let's see what you guys think about it. So as you can see in this graphic, there are a few changes from what the current playoff picture would be. Firstly, let me talk about who I have making the playoffs. In the Eastern Conference, given the fact that the Wizards are 5.5 games behind the Brooklyn Nets and the Orlando Magic, I don't think they'll be making a push to the playoffs, and the teams that are currently 1 through 8 in the Eastern Conference will be making the playoffs. As I said in the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series, the Wizards will be using this time to develop their young players that are opting into playing in Orlando, and given the fact that Davis Bertans, I don't think Bradley Beal is playing in Orlando either, it's just not foreseeable for them to make the playoffs. However, in the Western Conference, I feel that the play-in tournament rule, which means that if the 9th seed is within 4 games of the 8th seed, the 9th seed will be forced into a play-in tournament. In that play-in tournament, the 9th seed has to win 2 games against the 8th seed, but the 8th seed only has to win 1 game to advance into the playoffs to face the Lakers, who inevitably will be the 1st seed. I feel that the Portland Trail Blazers will be the ones to make the jump into the 9th seed and force a play-in tournament. While the Pelicans really looked strong when Zion Williamson was back, the experience of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum in the playoffs is undoubtable, and the fact that Zach Collins and Jusuf Nurkic will be back for the Portland Trail Blazers, it'll be very easy for them to be strong contenders into forcing in a play-in tournament, and given the relative inexperience of the Grizzlies of players like Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. in the playoffs, I feel that they won't be able to make that same playoff push that the Portland Trail Blazers will win, and I will do. And I feel that the Trail Blazers will be able to win 2 games against the Grizzlies and win that play-in tournament to end up as the 8th seed and face the Los Angeles Lakers. As you will also notice, there are a few changes in seeding in comparison to the current playoff picture. Firstly, I feel that the Pacers will drop down to the 6th seed and face the Celtics in the first round, and the Philadelphia 76ers will move up from the 6th seed and become the 5th seed. I feel this will happen because Victor Oladipo, he isn't too sure about restarting the season. He's in the bubble, but he isn't as healthy and might want to focus on his just healing from his injury. Domantas Sabonis is out as well, and he's a crucial factor for this Pacers team. So with Sabonis and Oladipo not playing at full strength and Sabonis out, the Pacers will definitely suffer from that and drop down to the 6th seed. The 76ers, however, are going into this resumption of the season with all their players healthy, especially Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, which has never happened before the playoffs in this era of Simmons and Embiid. So I feel that they'll give them a push into making the 5th seed and having a first-round series against the Heat, which would definitely be easier for them versus a team like facing the Celtics, which the Pacers will end up doing. In the Western Conference, the Thunder will drop down to the 6th seed, and the Rockets will jump up to the 4th seed, which means the Jazz will drop down to the 5th seed. I feel that the Rockets will be able to make this push because in such a small sample size, their small ball lineup I feel will work. Most teams aren't used to facing such a small lineup like the Rockets have, and just the electrifying offense of Russell Westbrook and Harden. Harden's coming into the playoffs for the first time, fully rested, not fatigued, ready to carry this team like he does throughout the whole regular season, and I feel that will help push the Rockets into the 4th seed and give them, well, there's no home court advantage, but still, just having that mentality, oh, we're the 4th seed, and play the Jazz as the 5th seed. The Thunder will drop down to the 6th seed again because this core isn't tested in the playoffs. Individually, Chris Paul, obviously, Steven Adams, they've all played significant playoff games, but as a team, they've never made it this far. This is a very new team for the Thunder, and they haven't played in the playoffs together. In the playoffs, and just this whole bubble experience is very unique. And teams that have been together for a while will be more suitable for making jumps in seeding, which is why I feel that the Thunder will fall down, and the Jazz will also fall down, given the Rockets jump from the 6th seed to the 4th seed. So yes, those are the only changes that I have in the current playoff picture. Now, let's get right into analyzing each series and determining who I feel will be the NBA champion. The first series I'll be analyzing is the first round matchup between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Brooklyn Nets. I think we all know how this series is going to play out. Giannis is going to go on a tear with support from Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe, and that brilliant Bucks core versus a Brooklyn Nets team that has a new head coach without Kevin Durant, without Kyrie Irving. We all know that the Bucks are going to sweep the Brooklyn Nets 4-0 in this series. The next series I'll be analyzing is the Eastern Conference matchup between the 2nd-seeded Toronto Raptors and the 7th-seeded Orlando Magic. Again, this is another series that is very easy to predict. The Toronto Raptors, as I've consistently said, are title contenders, and the Orlando Magic, who are again a very mediocre team, have nothing to stop this is the amazing team of the Raptors, including Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Serge Ibaka, the list goes on. All of them coached by Nick Nurse. You definitely know that the Toronto Raptors are either sweeping or beating the Magic 4-1 in this playoff series. The next Eastern Conference matchup in the first round is between the 3rd-seeded Boston Celtics and the 6th-seeded Indiana Pacers. If, as I said before, if Oladipo was 100% and Sabonis wasn't out with his foot injury, this would have been a great series to watch. However, given the fact that the Pacers would be heavily reliant on Malcolm Brogdon and TJ Warren, that doesn't really exude confidence in the playoffs against a team like the Celtics, who have been dominant throughout the year, and Jason Tatum is emerging as a superstar, Jaylen Brown is a budding superstar, Kemba Walker is already defined as one of the best point guards in the NBA, Gordon Hayward is doing his thing, Marcus Smart is doing his thing on both offense and defense. Overall, the Celtics have a much more well-rounded and just playoff-suited core in comparison to the Pacers without Oladipo and Sabonis. So while the Pacers might give a challenge to the Celtics in 1 or 2 games, if they can really clamp down Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker, the Celtics will pull out the series in 5 or 6 games. The 4th and final first-round matchup in the Eastern Conference is the one I'm most looking forward to. It's the matchup between the 4th-seeded Miami Heat and the 5th-seeded Philadelphia 76ers. Both teams have their strengths, and there are many storylines in this game, especially the storyline of Jimmy Butler facing his old team, in which he had some conflicts with some of the young players, Josh Richardson playing against some of his old teammates. So overall, it'll be a great series to watch. They both play very exciting styles of basketball. The Sixers on transition with Ben Simmons leading the break is amazing to watch. However, the Heat definitely have the defensive capabilities and players like Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, just to really, stop that fast break and really try and prevent players like Joel Embiid. Bam Adebayo against Joel Embiid in the post is going to be a great matchup to watch. I'm telling you, Jimmy Butler is going to guard Ben Simmons to prove himself. That's just the type of guy Jimmy is. So overall, and then it'll be like young stars against young stars. Matisse Thybulle trying to lock down players like Tyler Hero, for example. 2 rookies going at it. So overall, I feel that the 76ers will move on from this series given the fact that this Heat team, while they played brilliantly this year, they're a young team. Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, they're all in their either Tyler Hero and Kendrick Nunn are in their first years. Bam is in his 3rd years. Duncan Robinson is a rookie. All these players are very young, and while Jimmy Butler, Goran Dragic provide that veteran presence, it won't be enough against superstars like Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and then the depth that the 76ers possess with players like Matisse Thybulle, Al Horford, Tobias Harris, Kyle O'Quinn. All these guys just playing alongside Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid will really test the Miami Heat, and honestly, I feel that the Sixers will move on in either 6 or 7 games. This series has potential to go that far, making it the most exciting matchup to look forward to in the Eastern Conference. Now, let's move over into the Western Conference and the first round matchup between the 1st-seeded Los Angeles Lakers and the 8th-seeded Portland Trail Blazers. I really feel that the Lakers have a very strong advantage here because of one key fact. LeBron James. LeBron James is on a tear. He's 2nd in the Kia MVP race, just playing out of his mind, and he's rested, and I feel he knows this is one of his last chances to get a ring. He's aging. Anthony Davis, this whole core, I think this is the year that LeBron knows, I need to grab this championship. The circumstances are set for him. The season restarted. I think he really wants to capitalize on the situation, and him and Davis just form an outstanding pair as we've seen the whole year, and they have decent players that have joined them, such as Dion Waiters, JaVale McGee, Danny Green. They have a great roster surrounding them. So while the Portland Trail Blazers have the playoff experience of Damian Lillard, and they have just Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum as well, not to count out Yusuf Nurkic, Melo as well, while the Blazers can give a challenge, they can take 1 or 2 games, the Lakers will ultimately prevail and win this series in 5 or 6 games. The next first round matchup from the Western Conference is between the 2nd seeded Los Angeles Clippers and the 7th seeded Dallas Mavericks. This will be a very interesting series to watch, with Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis, a young European duo, fighting it out against two of the best players in the NBA in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Luka Doncic has been one of the best players in the NBA, around top 3, top 5 level, and Kawhi Leonard's Kawhi Leonard. So these two will be the spearheads of each of their team, and it'll be really interesting how they face up against each other. Will they be guarding each other? Who would just do better overall? I really feel that the Clippers have the advantage in this series because of their veteran experience, their 2 stars, and overall just the Clippers organization itself, led by Doc Rivers. They have a great culture and they have great veterans who are, ready. They're able to ignore the, bubble aspect. They're not harmed by superficial stuff like this. They're just focused on the court, how to get wins. Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Marcus Morris. The list just goes on for this Clippers team, and I really feel that they have the advantage over this young yet very entertaining Mavericks team. Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis, again, are another duo that will give a challenge to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. However, just the veteran experience and the culture of the Clippers will prevail over the Dallas Mavericks, and I feel that the Clippers will take this series in 6 or 7 games. As I said, the Mavericks will be giving them a challenge in this series. The next first round matchup in the Western Conference is between the 3rd seeded Denver Nuggets and the 6th seeded Oklahoma City Thunder. This will be another series I'm quite looking forward to. Both the Thunder and the Nuggets play with very unique lineups, which will be very interesting to watch against each other. In the scrimmages that happened in the last week, the Nuggets pulled out a lineup which had Bol at the small forward, a 7'3" guy. Nikola Jokic was playing the point guard, and they had a very tall lineup. So the Nuggets are used to bringing out these intriguing lineups, and they have some intriguing stars, such as Bol, the 7'3" guy with a 7'9" wingspan, but has a feathery touch from the three-point line. Nikola Jokic, one of the best passing big men in NBA history, a sharpshooter in Jamal Murray, and an overall great veterans in Paul Millsap and Will Barton, as well as Mason Plumlee. So the Nuggets have a great team, but the Thunder have really defied expectations this year, and they ran a very intriguing lineup as well, including their three point guard lineup with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chris Paul, and Dennis Schroeder. Going into this series, both teams have their strengths and weaknesses. However, I feel that the depth and the playoff experience of a core together, the Nuggets have been with this core, they've made the playoffs 2 or 3 years, while the Thunder, it's their first year with Chris Paul, with Shai, and they have a relatively new roster. So going into the playoffs with a new roster is always not as good as having a very experienced core who's played together in crunch time games. So I feel that the Nuggets, due to their depth and experience, will have the advantage in this series and will go on to win in 6 games. The last matchup in the first round of the Western Conference will be between the 4th seeded Houston Rockets and the 5th seeded Utah Jazz. This series has happened in the 2018 and 2019 playoffs, so it'll be quite intriguing to see these teams match up for the 3rd time in a row and see who prevails. In the past 2 years, it's been the Rockets due to one factor. I think it's James Harden. Obviously, they had Chris Paul and stuff, but James Harden is that edge, having that true superstar that the Utah Jazz lack. Donovan Mitchell has the potential to become one. Rudy Gobert is arguably the best defensive player in the league. However, just having James Harden is a big benefit for this Rockets team. And again, for the 3rd year in a row, I feel that the Rockets will prevail due to Harden and Westbrook just going at it. I don't think Rudy Gobert will be able to capitalize on the small ball lineup that the Houston Rockets run due to his lack of offensive abilities. I mean, he is a decent center on the offensive end, but clearly his strength lies in defending in the paint, and the Houston Rockets negate that due to their small ball lineup, which is just all about shooting threes, and that would leave Rudy Gobert out of place in this lineup, which would force Quinn Snyder, the head coach of the Jazz, to play a smaller player in place of Gobert to guard the three-point line, because the Rockets will just expose whoever Rudy Gobert will be guarding, which will be quite an interesting thing to watch out for in this series, to see how Quinn Snyder accommodates for the fact that the Houston Rockets will be running that small ball lineup. However, I feel that this is such a small sample size, in the Utah Jazz haven't faced something like this where Rudy Gobert just gets negated on both the offensive and defensive end, which will lead to the Rockets getting yet another series win against the Utah Jazz in 5 or 6 games. And with that, we wrap up the first round predictions of this video. As you can see, the teams that will be moving on the Eastern Conference will be the Milwaukee Bucks, who will face the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Raptors will be facing the Celtics. In the Western Conference, the Lakers move on to face the Rockets, and the Clippers will be moving on to face the Nuggets, in my opinion. Now let's see who moves on from now. The first matchup in the Eastern Conference semifinals will be between the first-seeded Milwaukee Bucks and the fourth-seeded Philadelphia 76ers. This will be a very intriguing series to watch, one of the most intriguing series of the whole playoffs. The Bucks, there's many storylines that go into this series because Giannis will be going up against the superstar duo of Philadelphia, which includes Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, but you'll also face Al Horford, who was the guy who locked him up in the second round in the 2019 playoffs, but then Giannis prevailed in that matchup against the Celtics. And overall, it'll be again two very deep teams who possess the talent to move on and eventually become champions. However, I feel that the Bucks have the edge in this series, given their chemistry as a team and an overall, they have a hierarchy in this team, unlike the Sixers. I feel the Sixers aren't too sure who their number one option is, which is very crucial, which is not good for the playoffs. In the playoffs, I feel you need to know who's your number one option. Who's the guy who's gonna get the ball to get the game winner? In Philadelphia, they're not sure. Is it Ben Simmons? Is it Joel Embiid? In the Bucks, they have a clear-cut hierarchy and everyone knows who they're supporting. Giannis is a centerpiece of both offensive defense and everyone will be around him. They know how they have better chemistry than the Sixers do. The Sixers have a lot of personalities and it's not a cohesive unit unlike the Bucks, which is why I feel that while on the court they are very similar, they're off the court abilities, the chemistry and the camaraderie between the team. The Bucks have an edge in that, and they have a better coach as well, which will lead them to moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals in 6 or 7 games. It'll be a very interesting series, as I said. The next Eastern Conference semifinals matchup is between the Toronto Raptors and the Boston Celtics. This is another series, if it happens, I'll be very eager to watch, just because of the fact their teams are very deep, but they also play a very fun brand of basketball. Nick Nurse is a basketball genius, as I've said across many videos of mine. He really, he really uses unorthodox methods on the both offensive and defensive end. Like in the 2019 finals, the box and one method that they used against Steph Curry was ingenious. And as well, so him going up against Brad Stevens, who in my opinion is also a very, very smart coach and is one of the best coaches in the NBA, will be a great matchup to watch. Who can utilize their talent better? I feel that both the Celtics really don't have, Jason Tatum, he's a young budding star, but he isn't that upper level of superstar like the Raptors had last year with Kawhi. Speaking of not having Kawhi, the Raptors also don't have that one defining superstar that is commonly seen with a successful team in the playoffs. However, both teams are very deep, and they both utilize all their players to the best of their abilities. They both have deep benches and assets that will be very crucial in their playoff run. Overall, I feel that the Raptors will prevail in this series due to their experience as a team. They have more veterans than the Celtics do, and overall, they have, I think, just coming off of a finals win, they'll be more confident going into the series. The Celtics have young players who have made it far in the playoffs, like Jason Tatum. They forced the Cavaliers to Game 7 in the 2018 playoffs. However, I feel that the Raptors, given their players like Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, Kyle Lowry, these guys will provide that veteran experience and those crunch time clutch plays that are crucial, while Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, even Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker he's 8 or 9 years in the league, but he hasn't really made it far in the playoffs. Playing in such a high pressure environment is always easier for veterans because they've done it before. It's like been there, done that for them. However, for Tatum, it'll be one of his first times, as a leader of the team, making it this far and really trying to prove it on the biggest stage, which is why I feel that the Raptors will win this series in 6 or 7 games. Moving over to the Western Conference, the first semifinals matchup will be between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Houston Rockets. I feel that the Lakers will definitely win this series, but I'll go into depth why. Firstly, I think their biggest strength is that they have solid big men who are great offensive talents to go up against the small ball lineup of the Houston Rockets. Obviously, that includes Anthony Davis, but also JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard. Both of them have been great rim runners, supporting their great playmaker they have in LeBron James, of course. And they've been it's a perfect complement to this Lakers team in having McGee and Howard. Both are great rebounders and both are great dunkers and great finishers around the rim. However, the key big man that the Lakers have, which is a significant advantage over the Rockets, is obviously Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is one of the best big men, if not the best big man in the NBA, given his all-around offensive game and just his amazing post scoring, great mid-range game, and amazing rebounding abilities, as well as defensive abilities. As I said, one of the best players in the NBA, not just big man. He's arguably the best big man in the NBA, but also one of the best players in the NBA. Another thing that will work for the Lakers is, again, LeBron James. LeBron James will definitely, have the experience. He'll know what to do against a unique, unorthodox team like the Rockets is. While Westbrook and Harden will definitely give a challenge to this Lakers team, which is lacking perimeter guys such as Rajon Rondo and Avery Bradley, they do have good wing defenders to stop Harden, such as Danny Green, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Alex Caruso. They have defenders who are capable. Stopping Harden is one of the hardest things to do in basketball, but they have players that will be able to limit his offensive game and force the burden on Westbrook, whose game is based around driving to the rim, where he'll have to face guys like Dwight Howard, Anthony Davis, and even LeBron James on some occasions, given the fact that the Rockets run a small ball lineup, which will intrigue Coach Frank Vogel for the Lakers to put LeBron in at power forward or even center and run a small ball lineup of their own, which is definitely possible for this Lakers team. So I feel that the Lakers have the advantage in this series and will move on in 5 or 6 games to the Western Conference Finals. The second Western Conference semifinals matchup will be between the Los Angeles Clippers and the Denver Nuggets. This series will be very fun to watch. The Nuggets are a team that, despite being young, have proved themselves in the playoffs. Last year, they took the battle-proven Blazers to 7 games, and I think this is a year they're really trying to, really prove themselves and make the Western Conference Finals, if not the Finals. However, it's unfortunate for them that they'll be going up against the juggernaut, which is the Los Angeles Clippers. Having Kawhi Leonard and Paul George will be a significant advantage for the Clippers. However, the Nuggets will be able to, put some pressure on these guys due to their depth of wing defenders in Jeremiah Grant, Will Barton, Michael Porter Jr., and Gary Harris. All of these guys are adept, if not one of the better wing defenders in the NBA, and putting them on Paul George and Kawhi Leonard will really force the best out of Leonard and George if they want to move on in the playoffs. However, the veteran depth that the Clippers possess versus the relatively inexperienced depth of the Nuggets will end up propelling the Clippers into the Western Conference Finals. I think the X factor in this series will be Lou Williams and how he can score off the bench for the Clippers. Despite, as I said, the Nuggets have great wing defenders, and their big men will definitely try to capitalize on the lack of big men that the Clippers have. The Clippers would have loved to face up against the Rockets due to the fact that the Clippers are very good at playing small ball as well. However, going up with the Nuggets will be a challenge for them, facing big men like Paul Millsap, obviously Jokic, Bull, he can be a big X factor in this series, and Mason Plumlee. We can't count out Plumlee's rebounding and rim running off the bench. He's a great asset for this Nuggets team. However, I feel that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George's superstar abilities will end up prevailing over the Nuggets, who, despite having Jokic, don't have that second fiddle that I feel Jokic needs to complement his game. Jokic is a great post scorer, but he's also a great playmaker, and while Jamal Murray seems to be that second fiddle, it isn't ideal, and they would prefer a better player than Murray to be that second offensive star. Maybe Bol or Michael Porter Jr. could prevail in that role. However, I feel that the Clippers will be moving on in this series in 7 games. And with that, we move on to the conference finals for each conference. As we can see, the Bucks prevail against the 76ers, and the Raptors will be prevailing against the Celtics, in my opinion. In the Western Conference, it'll be the inevitable matchup between the Lakers and the Clippers. Let's see who moves on to the finals. The Eastern Conference Finals matchup between the Bucks and the Raptors will result in me making my boldest prediction of this video. I believe that the Raptors will be advancing in 7 games against the Milwaukee Bucks and ending up in the finals in back-to-back years. Why do I make this claim? Last year, what really stopped Giannis from making the finals was the fact that the Raptors psychologically, I feel, got into his head with the wall that became infamous. Nick Nurse used Kawhi Leonard as a wing defender to stop Giannis from driving in, and then if he did get past Kawhi, which happened multiple times given Giannis's insane driving abilities, he would face the wall, which included Pascal Siakam, Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, and just other big man that the Raptors possessed in order to stop Giannis from doing what he's best at, which is dunking the basketball after driving past everyone on the team. I feel that the Raptors will be able to emulate this once again, given the fact that despite losing Kawhi Leonard, arguably the best wing defender in the NBA, they can put a guy like Siakam on him. Nick Nurse has been developing Siakam as a more all-rounded player in the sense he's making him more mobile and able to guard guys like Giannis who are quick on their feet. Siakam, despite being 6'9", 6'10", has the ability to stay with Giannis and stop him for a bit as the wall forms. Also, I feel that in the wall, they'll be able to replace Siakam with Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher was outstanding for the Raptors on the defensive end, and he'll slot right into that role with Gasol and Ibaka, preventing Giannis from driving to the rim. And if the Raptors can really force the Bucks to, again, get in their heads, not like just make them miss those three-point shots like they did last year, I feel that the Raptors will be prevailing and winning this series in 7 games and moving on to the 2020 NBA Finals. Now, in the Western Conference, we have the matchup that everyone has been waiting for the whole year. LeBron James and Anthony Davis against Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. The Lakers against the Clippers. The Battle of LA. I feel that the Lakers will be prevailing in this series in 7 games. Again, due to one simple fact. LeBron James. He is on a mission. I've said this multiple times in this video and I'll say it again. LeBron James is on a mission. He knows it's his last year. It's his best chance to get a ring. And I really think he wants to get it this year. The Lakers have the superstar depth to match the Clippers, which obviously is LeBron and AD opposing Kawhi and Paul George. And the Lakers also possess depth like the Clippers do. The edge that the Lakers, I feel, have in this situation is the chemistry that they've developed all throughout the years. This Lakers core has played together more games than the Clippers have. I feel that the Clippers, they acquired players around the trade deadline, including Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, who got bought out of his Pistons contract, and they acquired, their team is relatively new in comparison to the Lakers team. Of course, Anthony Davis is a new addition this year, which is a big addition. However, they really built a good camaraderie in this team, which is something I feel that the Clippers haven't had the time to develop. Maybe they were able to do it during the quarantine period, and they were able to, meet on Zoom and stuff, and really build team chemistry through that. But I feel that the on-court time that this Lakers group has spent together will prove invaluable in this series in such tough circumstances, and will eventually help the Lakers prevail in 7 games and advance to the NBA Finals and face the Toronto Raptors. And then there were 2. In the finals, I will have the Raptors facing the Lakers. Now, let's see who is crowned the champion of the 2019-2020 NBA season. In the 2019-2020 NBA Finals, I believe that the Los Angeles Lakers will face up against the Toronto Raptors, and the Los Angeles Lakers will be crowned NBA champions. The Lakers have the superstars that the Raptors don't. It's as simple as that. While the Raptors have the deeper team, the more experienced team in terms of playoff success. The Lakers have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and in the playoffs, it's superstars what matter. And while the Raptors, their team, their team play and the genius of Nick Nurse can bring them that as far as to the finals, I feel that the Lakers will be able to take advantage of having LeBron James and Anthony Davis and a decent supporting cast including Danny Green, Kuzma, Caldwell Pope, and other players such as Dion Waiters, and will eventually win this NBA Finals in 6 or 7 games. And with that, I would like to conclude my playoff predictions episode here on the NBA, the week that was. Please, in the comment section down below, let me know what do you think of my predictions. Are you agreeing with them, or are you agreeing with only some of them? Do you think that the Lakers will win the championship, or do you feel that I'm wrong? Do you think the Clippers, the Bucks, the Raptors, other teams have a better chance of winning the ring? Also, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like down below, and if you're new on this channel, subscribe as well. I'll catch you guys in the next video here on the NBA, the week that was. See ya!